After years of hard work, Alina finally secured a permanent position within the system, only to end up working overtime every night like a corporate slave. So, to ensure she could leave work on time, Alina decided to personally take down the bosses. Alina is a receptionist at the Adventurers Guild. She gets into her uniform early in the morning, ready for work. Even though she's just a receptionist, she's officially a civil servant. Her job is to smile and guide adventurers until it's time to clock out. But lately, the guild has been overcrowded daily because a dungeon boss hasn't been defeated. The fully armed man walking towards the counter is applying to challenge that dungeon. He's a member of the elite adventurer team, Silver Sword, and feels entitled to special treatment, expecting Alina to process his application without even showing his license. Alina is infuriated, but maintains a polite demeanor, repeatedly explaining that she's just following the rules. It takes several requests for the man to reluctantly produce his license. The Adventurer Guild is located in a major city on a continent once blessed by gods, who established a highly advanced civilization that vanished overnight, leaving the land to monsters. 200 years ago, people came here, fought the monsters in dungeons, and rebuilt human towns. Alina spends her days serving adventurers, and her nights buried in paperwork, far from the civil servant life she envisioned. Shouldn't she be able to clock out on time, go home, have a relaxing bath, and cook a nutritious dinner? Frustrated, Alina downs an energy potion, determined to leave on time the next day, and continues with her work. The recent workload has piled up because the dungeon boss, the Hellfire Dragon, remains undefeated, attracting more monsters and adventurers. If she can solve this at the source, Alina won't have to work overtime anymore. She slams her license on the desk, changes clothes, and heads to the dungeon. Meanwhile, in the dungeon's deepest lair, the Silver Sword members are battling the Hellfire Dragon. The team leader Jed raises a protective barrier against the dragon's fiery breath. The fully armed man swings his axe but is swatted away by the dragon. The healer casts healing magic, and the mage fires ice spears, but they cause no damage. Just as Jed decides to retreat, a mysterious adventurer appears, wielding a huge hammer, and strikes the dragon, causing a concussion. After hitting its legs, the dragon crashes to the ground, but then flies up again, releasing a fire breath. Alina leaps through the breath, her hammer slicing through the dragon, which cries in pain and falls from the sky, lifeless. The other adventurers recognize this mysterious person as the Executioner, known for soloing dungeon bosses when no one else can. The dragon's body slowly vanishes, dropping a magic orb, but Alina has no interest in it. Her only thought is that she can finally leave work on time tomorrow. She glances back at the adventurers. The next day, Silver Sword places an ad seeking the Executioner as the fully armed man plans to retire, and the team wants the Executioner to join them. Alina's photo is in the paper, shocking her. A colleague asks if she knows who the Executioner is, clearly a fan, hoping the Executioner joins Silver Sword to make them unbeatable. Alina won't reveal her identity as she used a pseudonym for her license and fought the boss alone. If discovered, she could be fired, and she doesn't want to lose her well-benefited, secure job. On the other side, the remaining 3 members of the Silver Sword were still searching for the Executioner they saw that day. Jed had locked eyes with Alina, but only noted she was a young woman with black hair and green eyes. While Jed was busy searching the streets, his 2 teammates were enjoying a nice date. Lululai even fed Lods a donut, urging him to get out more instead of always staying at home, even though Lods was actually up all night studying a magic tome. He thought a break like this was nice for a change. Meanwhile, Jed was walking the streets with the magic orb dropped by the Hellfire Dragon. Such orbs, marked with the seal of the gods, contain ancient technologies and grant power to their users, making them highly sought after by adventurers. However, the Executioner, Alina, showed no interest in it. Moreover, the skills she used were different from the typical adventurer skills, possibly even divine realm skills. Just then, a gust of wind caught his attention, and he noticed a young woman walking ahead. When Alina turned around, her black hair and green eyes matched exactly what Jed saw that day. He immediately followed her to the Adventurers Guild and greeted her without hesitation. At the sight of Jed, Alina broke into a sweat, worried she might have left some clue behind. Jed didn't beat around the bush and directly asked if she knew who the Executioner was. Alina pretended to be clueless, but Jed was persistent, claiming his eyes and nose were very sharp, and he could see clearly even in dim places. Alina panicked internally. She had worn a hat specifically to cover her face in the dimly lit dungeon. How could she have been spotted? Was her peaceful life as a receptionist about to end here? No, Alina wouldn't give up. She dragged Jed into an alley and crushed the magic orb he handed her, declaring she just wanted a peaceful life as a receptionist. If he didn't want to end up shattered like that wretched dragon, he would disappear from her sight immediately. However, Jed was undeterred by Alina's threat, so she pulled out a large hammer. For the sake of her peaceful life, she was ready to silence him permanently. Frightened, Jed quickly changed the topic, asking where her weapon came from. Was it really a divine realm skill? Alina didn't understand what he was talking about, so Jed explained it was a mythical skill thought to have vanished with the ancients, stronger than any modern super realm skill. Alina wasn't interested in these details. Jed pleaded for his own sake, saying he just wanted Miss Alina. The way she fought the Hellfire Dragon had left a lasting impression on him. Moreover, if Alina truly wanted to be just a receptionist, why would she take on dungeon bosses alone? Alina candidly replied it was because she didn't want to work overtime. She then ranted about how much she detested overtime, blaming the procrastinating adventurers for her endless workdays. She had to take matters into her own hands to end it all and reclaim her life of leaving work on time. What was wrong with that? Why did everyone have to probe into her identity? Jed quickly mentioned that they, the Silver Sword, didn't have to do overtime. Of course, that was because they hardly ever clocked out. Anyway, Alina was not going to join them, and she forbade Jed from speaking of this matter. However, Jed wasn't ready to give up. Alina always encounters troublemakers at work. This man, right from the start, demanded a secret mission, almost reducing a young girl to tears. Alina stepped in to intervene, explaining that their guild didn't have such missions. This led to her being scolded by the man as well. Although internally fuming, Alina remained smiley and patiently explained the situation. When the man attempted to get physical, Jed stepped in and quickly subdued his minor skills. The man had no choice but to leave the guild, cursing as he went. Jed then approached Alina to check on her, but she wasn't receptive and questioned his reasons for coming. Remembering Alina's previous threats, Jed quickly made an excuse and left. Alina was troubled by Jed's awareness of her true identity and contemplated giving him a hard time. However, as a key figure in the guild, if he complained, she risked being fired. The thought stressed Alina, who just wanted to stay forever in her small house which she had bought with a mortgage. To keep up with the payments, she couldn't afford to lose her job. At lunchtime, Alina found a scenic spot to eat, venting about how Jed was always hanging around the guild. No sooner had she finished complaining than Jed appeared, angering Alina, who impulsively reached for her hammer. However, Jed only wanted to ask about when her divine skills had developed, as no one knew the conditions for skill development, which were mostly luck-based. Alina had managed to develop her skills, but was just a receptionist, which Jed found regrettable. Alina found his life advice annoying, and firmly stated she would never join the Silver Sword. In fact, Alina knew why her skills had developed. Going back 2 years to the summer, the town was celebrating an annual Centennial Festival. As a new receptionist, Alina was unfamiliar with her duties and often worked overtime. It was said that on the festival day, the person with the strongest wish could receive a divine blessing. Alina earnestly prayed to be spared from overtime. However, the miracle didn't happen, and by the time she finished work and rushed to the square, the festival was over. Overwhelmed with tears and hatred for the guild that increased her pay, the incompetent adventurers who couldn't defeat the bosses, and the bosses themselves, she muttered that she would do anything to avoid overtime. She wished for a powerful force to eliminate all obstacles. As she spoke, a magic circle appeared beneath her, and her skills developed that night. Meanwhile, the troublemaking man had come to the square and saw a group of adventurers capturing a stone statue to take back to the guild. Seizing the opportunity, he controlled the statue to create havoc in the town. Jed nearby sensed the commotion and plunged his sword into the ground, drawing the statue's ire towards himself and allowing others to seek refuge. The man on the statue's shoulder was thrilled to see Jed and declared his intention to destroy him, the annoying receptionist, and the entire town. The statue unleashed a powerful move, which Jed blocked with his shield skill, Iron Wall Guardian. At the same time, Alina was still working overtime. Hearing the noise outside, she looked out and saw the man from that morning. Suddenly, many boulders appeared around the statue, flying in different directions, one heading straight for her home. She ran towards her house, but it was too late. Her home, bought with a 30-year mortgage, was destroyed. In that moment, Alina felt her world collapse. She pulled out her hammer and sought revenge, smashing one of the statue's arms with a strike. The man didn't realize whom he had provoked. Losing her only haven, Alina, enraged, raised her hammer and split the giant statue in two. She then approached the man and swung her hammer down, stopping short of killing him but teaching him a lesson. That evening, Alina huddled miserably against the wall, unsure of her next steps. Jed, blushing, invited her to spend the night at his house, but Alina looked at him as if he were a creep. "What are you thinking?" "I'll stay in a hotel, of course." And because of that troublemaker, Alina had to stay at the guild to work overtime again. That night, the guild leader appeared in the town square. According to witnesses, the executioner had been seen there earlier. The guild leader used his skill Time Observer to review the past. Alina didn't realize she had already fallen from grace last time. While working, she furiously cursed the idiot's ancestors. Fortunately, Jed had some conscience and was willing to work overtime with her. His efficiency made Alina jealous. She, a clumsy human who had to make all mistakes to learn, couldn't compare with Jed, who grasped concepts quickly with just a hint. After struggling for 3 years, she was surpassed by Jed in an instant. This made Alina both angry and disheartened, acutely aware of the innate unfairness of life. Jed tried to console her and was about to offer some sweets, but accidentally pulled out a relic Alina had previously crushed. It had some writing on it about taking on a mission. As he read the words, the relic glowed, and a mission paper appeared, assigning them to conquer all the bosses at each level of a place called the Tower of Baya. Neither had heard of it and were puzzled by the sudden task. Alina was not interested in such tasks, and Jed didn't push her, only saying he would investigate further. The next day, the news of the executioner appearing in town spread everywhere and even made the front page of the newspaper. Eager colleagues came to share the news with Alina, maliciously asking if she might be the executioner. Surprisingly, the executioner was now as popular as Jed. One colleague speculated that a handsome face must be hiding under the executioner's hood, even expressing a wish to be executed by him. They also started shipping Jed and the executioner, leaving Alina at a loss for words. Just then, the guild leader entered and walked straight up to Alina to inquire if she knew her own skill. As a receptionist, Alina indeed knew. The Time Observer could not only pause the current time, but also view past events. As she spoke, she realized something. The guild leader then leaned in close and invited her to headquarters for tea. The notification left Alina utterly dejected, convinced she was about to be fired. When Jed heard, he brought his teammates to comfort her. They reassured her that although the guild leader looked intimidating, a good explanation would surely absolve her. Alina didn't want to talk, suspecting Jed had snitched on her and declaring her dislike for him. This was a blow to Jed, and his teammates could tell he had fallen for her. With no way to avoid it, Alina resignedly headed to headquarters, where the guild leader surprisingly declared he wanted to challenge her to a match. Alina, working as a countergirl, was unexpectedly approached by the guild president, who challenged her to a duel. He stated that if Alina won, the guild would no longer interfere with the executioner's affairs, and she would never lose her job as a countergirl. Without hesitation, Alina accepted the challenge, pulling out a large hammer from a white magic circle. After exchanging a few polite words with the leader, she swung her hammer at the president. To her surprise, he used his skill Time Observer to freeze time, though he admitted feeling that Alina might be even more formidable than a demon god. Just then, the time barrier suddenly cracked, and Alina broke free. In the now static observation room, only the two of them could move. The president, with a hearty laugh, conceded defeat, acknowledging that Alina's ability to break through his spatial skill proved she was stronger than him. He had no intention of fighting her to the death. He merely wanted to test her true capabilities. Skills can be categorized into human domain skills and the higher super domain skills, but there are even stronger divine domain skills. Higher skills can defeat lower ones, and since the president's skill was already a super domain skill, Alina's must be a divine domain skill. Alina, however, showed no interest in this, and only hoped the president would keep his promise not to bother her anymore. But then he mentioned the Tower of Baya, revealing that Jed had already reported it to the guild. An investigation was launched immediately, and they discovered a new labyrinth named the Tower of Baya. The letter found in the relic was a secret mission hidden by ancestors. Upon hearing this, Alina was overwhelmed. Knowing a new labyrinth meant a significant increase in her workload. She grabbed the president's collar, shouting about the hardships of countergirls, until he truly understood that Alina's solo ventures to fight bosses were merely to avoid overtime. But this new labyrinth posed various challenges, and they needed her strength. Alina was reluctant to get involved until the president mentioned doubling the number of countergirls, which meant future workloads could be shared, and she could avoid overtime hell, achieving her dream of going home on time every day. With this incentive, she agreed to help. Since Alina's house was still under repair, she stayed in the dormitory of the Silver Sword, the guild's elite squad. The accommodations were excellent. Just as she considered sleeping in, Jed called her to get up. Reluctantly, she joined him and the rest of the team, including Lods and Lululai, to head to the new labyrinth. Alina was visibly downcast, using her paid leave for this. They approached the oddly shaped Tower of Baya, accessible only to those with a first-level license. Before entering, Jed handed Alina a specialized relic from the Silver Sword, which would notify teammates if someone was close to death. Alina accepted it, having previously fought alone. Jed briefed her on group combat strategies, emphasizing the need for a tank to draw enemies' attention. As soon as a monster appeared, Jed rushed to attract its attention while the others attacked. Alina then swooped in and instantly killed the monster, realizing that group combat simply added a step to her usual solo tactics. Lululai, impressed by Alina's prowess, flattered her, and Alina comforted her by saying she could become an excellent healer someday, though Lululai was actually older than her. They continued onward, finding no boss on the first floor and quickly moving to the second, where they stumbled upon several bodies. Lululi tried to heal them, but it was too late. The gruesome scene reminded Alina of her beloved uncle. Noticing Alina's distressed expression, Jed advised her not to look and examine the scene himself, noting that the enemy could penetrate shields to kill tanks, indicating very high attack power. They then found a survivor with blonde hair, who warned them about a humanoid monster ahead that could use skills. As they spoke, monsters drawn by the blood scent approached, and Jed activated his skill while Alina simultaneously swung her hammer, instantly killing the monster. The blonde mistakenly shouted that she must be an ally of the humanoid monster, because it also used a white magic circle and pulled out weapons just like Alina had. After discovering the victims, the group temporarily retreated with the blonde-haired man to report back to the guild president. The blonde-haired man's team, second only in strength to the Silver Sword, had suffered greatly, prompting the president to consider halting further exploration of the Tower of Baya. Unexpectedly, the blonde-haired man barged in, accusing them of being cowards. He had always been envious of Jed and his team, and believed he was more suited to join the Silver Sword. Now, thinking he had leverage over Alina, he threatened to reveal to the town that the executioner was actually a monster unless Alina was expelled from the Silver Sword and he was taken to the Tower of Baya with them. It turned out he was after a relic in the new labyrinth, believing it granted a divine domain skill. With no choice, Jed agreed to his demands and relayed the situation to Alina. Alina was only concerned about whether the president's previous promises would still hold if she didn't go to the Tower of Baya. Jed assured her he would try his best to uphold them. However, Alina felt something was off, but decided not to meddle further and began packing to leave. It was then Jed noticed she was in civilian clothes and couldn't help but feel lucky to see Miss Alina dressed so casually. Surprisingly, Alina also showed shyness. As Jed was leaving, she stopped him to ask if he was sure he didn't need her help, especially since the monster supposedly used divine domain skills. Jed couldn't guarantee safety, but their principle at Silver Sword was to face challenges head-on, though they would flee if the monster was too powerful. He promised Alina they would return safely before leaving. In that moment, Alina saw a vision of her beloved uncle. As a child, she adored her uncle, who was also an adventurer, and dreamt of becoming one like him. However, he encouraged her to pursue the stable job of a countergirl, even though she wanted to fight alongside him. They made a pinky promise, but soon after, his body was brought back by his companions, and Alina was left heartbroken with no response from him. Waking from this dream near work time, Alina hesitated but took the crystal relic, hoping Jed and his team would indeed return safely. However, Jed and his team were struggling in battle. The blonde-haired man not only refused to help, but also mocked Jed, who was actively drawing the monster's attention. Fortunately, they safely reached the final room. Lods cast a light spell, and a mass of flesh fell to the ground. All dead monsters. The humanoid monster the blonde-haired man had mentioned, who claimed to be the demon god Sheba, then appeared. He pulled out a spear from a white magic circle. Jed immediately raised his shield to protect his teammates, but the demon god shattered it with a single strike. Unexpectedly, the blonde man betrayed them by trapping the three in a cage using a skill. It turned out the demon god had been sealed here initially, and the blonde man had heard that feeding it human souls would break the seal. Thus, he killed his own allies to revive the demon god, and then lured Jed and the others as sacrifices, hoping to gain divine domain skills. However, as the blonde man laughed triumphantly, the demon god stabbed him from behind. After all, the demon god consumed anyone who entered its sight. With the blonde man's death, the cage disappeared, and his soul was quickly absorbed by the demon god, who scorned it as a vile and filthy soul. This piqued the demon god Sheba's curiosity about what Jed and his team's souls might taste like. Alina was torn about whether to rescue Jed and his team, but she decided to focus on her work instead. Unbeknownst to her, Jed and his companions were being thrashed by a demon god. Lods first unleashed flames, which the enemy easily dispersed. Lululai quickly buffed Jed, but a spear from the enemy grazed his shoulder, healing quickly due to the buff. Sheba found this skill intriguing, pulled out a large mirror, and stole Lululai's skill along with her staff, rendering her unable to use her abilities. Jed and Lods noticed a divine mark on Sheba's neck, indicating he was an artifact created by ancestors. Sheba then summoned several giant swords, which Lods and Lululai could not withstand. Jed stepped forward without hesitation to buy time, provoking the swords to target him instead. One sword pierced his shield and abdomen. Urging Lods to take Lululai and flee, another sword then pierced his leg. Lods, determined not to waste Jed's sacrifice, carried Lululai and ran while Jed stood up again. Outside, Lods and Lululai encountered a massive monster. Meanwhile, Alina was working overtime and drank an energy potion. Layla noticed a green light flashing in her pocket. Alina pulled out a stone that Jed had mentioned would alert companions when the holder was near death, indicating Jed was in grave danger. Remembering her beloved uncle, she immediately left her desk. Indeed, Jed was in crisis, with numerous swords aimed at him. He reminisced about meeting Alina in the depths of a maze and falling hopelessly in love with her, wishing he could see her again. This thought reinvigorated him, making Sheba's attacks feel insignificant compared to Alina's warhammer. Alina rushed to the guild headquarters teleportation device, wielding her huge warhammer and revealing her executioner identity to get past the guards. Lods, badly injured, was thrown by the monster and couldn't get up. With her staff and skills taken, Lululai was powerless. Lods told her to run, but she refused, shielding him instead. Just then, Alina appeared like a divine warrior and instantly killed the monster, gave Lods a healing potion, and was urged by Lululai to save Jed. After hearing about Sheba's traits from Lods, Alina comforted them and headed to the hall, finding Jed unconscious in a pool of blood. She thought he was dead and broke down crying. Suddenly, an axe flew towards her. She dodged and charged at Sheba, surprising him with her equal strength. Sheba launched a massive attack with countless swords flying at her. Despite her efforts, Alina was overwhelmed and injured, but Jed used the last shard of his shield to save her, buying time for her to deliver a decisive blow to Sheba's chest. The demon was sent flying into a pillar and buried under debris. Alina then checked on Jed, who had awakened upon hearing her voice, assuring her of his resilience. They embraced, and Alina shared her partially used potion with him as a reward. However, Sheba stood up again, his chest healing instantly, a result of the stolen skill that allowed him to regenerate, unless killed in one blow. Sheba boasted of his invincibility and the foolishness of his creators, whom he claimed to have devoured, hinting at the true fate of the ancestors. Sheba summoned even more swords, surrounding them. Alina, refusing to let Jed sacrifice himself, fought back with her warhammer. Despite the unpredictable sword trajectories, she fell, but refused to give up, driven by her dream of a peaceful life and returning safely each day. Her body glowed with a golden light, and she shot toward Sheba like a cannonball. knocking him back and eventually decapitating him with a final strike. As Sheba died proclaiming the omnipotence of demons and hinting at others like him, Alina struck him down, resenting the overtime he caused. Afterwards, Sheba vanished, leaving behind a black orb. Alina and Jed took it and rejoined Lods and Lululi, who were relieved to see Jed alive, all thanks to Alina. Despite complaining about more overtime, Alina was secretly pleased. Lululi's skills returned, and she focused on healing the severely injured Jed and Lods. Alina received leniency from the guild leader, who not only spared her from dismissal, but also imposed a gag order, keeping her executioner identity hidden. Once Jed recovered slightly, he joined Alina at work, this time without her refusal. If you ask Alina what the worst part of her job is, it's definitely when she's about to take her lunch break and some thoughtless adventurer comes in, forcing her to work overtime. However, Alina always manages with a smile. After all, it's all for the Centennial Festival. She missed it the last 2 years due to overtime and is determined to attend this year. The festival lasts 3 days, during which the Adventurers Guild offers higher than usual rewards, attracting hordes of adventurers. Thankfully, Alina has devised strategies from her past experiences to manage the surge efficiently. She plans to eat on the go for the first 2 days and save the main event, the soul-calming ceremony, for the 3rd day. She's working hard these days with the hope of leaving work on time to fully enjoy the festival. Meanwhile, at the Silver Sword dormitory, Lululi concocted a potion of an unappealing color and insisted Lods drink it. Lods, not yet fully recovered, began practicing darts and was sternly scolded by Lululi, who then forced him to drink the potion. Despite its awful taste, it proved quite effective. Today, Alina finally managed to leave work on time and decided to treat herself to some dessert. She went on a cake-buying spree on her way home, a luxury only a working adult could indulge in. At the shop, both she and Lululi simultaneously spotted the last strawberry tart. Being the elder, Alina let Lululi have it. They enjoyed some pastries together in the shop. Seeing Alina's blissful expression while eating sweets, Lululi finally understood why Jed was so smitten with her. Lululi's primary reason for coming was to buy grape jelly for Lods. Alina commended her thoughtfulness, making Lululi feel embarrassed, especially since their survival had largely depended on Alina. After their snack, Lululi said goodbye to Alina. Just as Lululi left, Jed immediately appeared, complaining that Alina hadn't visited him and had already moved out of their luxurious dormitory. Alina responded that her own small house, recently repaired by the guild, was the most comfortable for her. With only 10 days left until the Centennial Festival, Alina worked diligently every day, hoping to make it to the festival on time. Layla, noticing her enthusiasm, mistakenly thought Alina was finally ready to date, but was shocked to learn she planned to attend alone. Alina wanted to enjoy the festival by herself, leading Layla to wonder if this was the ultimate fate of a workaholic. Had she not already made plans, Layla would have offered to accompany her. Indeed, Layla planned to attend the festival with her idol, the executioner, not knowing she was actually planning to go with Alina, the real executioner herself. When Alina saw Layla pull out an executioner action figure, she couldn't help but remain speechless and reminded her that they needed to open the shop as adventurers were already eager to come in, despite it not being the special bonus period yet. Alina sensed something was amiss and was determined to resolve any issues before the festival. Meanwhile, Jed's team welcomed a new main attacker. Although talented, the young recruit lacked experience and was quickly knocked out by a beast. Lululi, still traumatized by past events, hesitated to use her healing magic. Before Jed could react, the new teammate rushed back into the fray, only to have his sword knocked away again. Fortunately, Alina appeared just in time to kill the beast. It turned out to be only a simulation training exercise, but Jed was unaware that Alina had just shattered a young man's confidence, causing him to quit the team and return to training. Alina brought Jed to the guild president to ask what was happening. The president explained that there were rumors among adventurers about a secret mission involving artifacts that could grant divine skills, which led adventurers to flock to the guild. However, these were just rumors, and the guild planned to issue an official announcement the next day. Jed and his team vowed to trace the source of the rumors. With that settled, Alina returned to her work, and Jed found Lululi to inquire about her recent behavior. Lululi gave a nonchalant response. Meanwhile, Lods arrived with a new staff for her. suggesting the previous one might not have suited her. He and the captain had prepared this gift, which looked almost identical to the old one. Lulu was deeply touched, not realizing that Jed and Lods were equally grateful for her support. This is what true teammates are like. On the other side, to avoid working late, Alina sacrificed her lunch break to work. Layla suggested she reduce her workload, noting Alina's tasks were double that of others because of her speed. She could easily cut down on tasks by flattering adventurers like others did, but Alina felt that if everyone acted that way, someone would still need to handle the tasks. She didn't want to resort to such tactics, feeling that honest people often get exploited in the workplace. That evening, the Silver Sword and the guild president discussed the rumor's potential aim: to resurrect a new demon. From their previous encounter with Sheba, Jed knew that demons needed to consume human souls to revive. They speculated that the rumor spreaders were luring adventurers to a hidden labyrinth to use them as sacrifices for the demon. Fortunately, they had an idea about the rumor's origin, which excited Alina. She eagerly suggested they set out immediately, even saying she would do anything to attend the Centennial Festival. Hearing this, Jed stayed behind after the meeting, offering Alina a way to clear her workload in exchange for a date at the festival. Alina was reluctant to accept such a condition, but considering she might miss the festival entirely, she compromised against her better judgment. Now, only 6 days remained until the festival. The next day, Alina and the Silver Sword disguised themselves as novices since the rumor targeted newcomers. They ventured into a C-rank labyrinth frequented by those spreading the rumors. The group took a break by a lake, where Lululai and Lods eagerly went swimming. Jed hoped to see Alina in a swimsuit, but she wasn't about to provide such a spectacle and tossed the fantasizing Jed into the water. Later, around a campfire, they reminisced about their early days as adventurers, with Jed and Lods frequently praising Lululi's efforts. At that moment, their target appeared, a white-haired man wearing glasses who struck up a conversation with them. Jed played the role of a novice adventurer, eager to earn more but struggling to progress. The white-haired man took the bait and offered a shortcut, a secret mission leading to a hidden labyrinth and a special artifact that could activate divine skills. Confirming these were the rumor spreaders, Jed dropped his disguise and confronted the white-haired man. Unexpectedly calm, a redhead launched the first attack. Alina, fed up with these troublemakers who caused her overtime, knocked the redhead away with a powerful blow from her giant warhammer, inadvertently revealing her identity. Ignoring Jed's reminder to capture them alive, she charged at the remaining people. The white-haired man, possessing teleportation skills, escaped instantly. They only managed to capture the redhead, who turned out to be Lululai's former teammate. He immediately antagonized her, calling her a murderer, and warning that keeping her around would lead to death. As Jed and Lods looked towards Lululai, Alina silenced the redhead with a decisive hammer blow, ensuring he couldn't stir further trouble. 4 days before the Centennial Festival, adventurers continued to arrive for quests. However, Jed spent every evening working overtime with Alina. This was his solution to ensure Alina could leave work on time for the festival. When Layla heard that Alina planned to go on a date with Jed during the festival, she felt like a child had finally grown up, even imagining their wedding. Unfortunately, Alina was not interested in such matters, regardless of Jed's good looks, physique, or his status on the adventurer's wealth rankings. After all, many of life's joys, like sweets after labor or indulging the night before a holiday, can't be bought with money. She was not the type to live off someone else's wealth. Little did she know, these were the very traits Jed admired in her. After working for a while, Alina stepped outside for fresh air, allowing Layla to leave work early. Jed comforted Layla, assuring her that he would stay with Alina until the end. Layla knew Alina was actually very kind-hearted, just prone to taking on too much by herself. She hoped Jed would support Alina no matter what happened next, and quickly left, not wanting to be a third wheel. Meanwhile, Lulu had a nightmare about her past, where her former teammate morphed into Jed, who called her a murderer before collapsing in front of her. She woke up distressed and couldn't calm down. The next day, she and Lods went to find Jed, and she brought up her ex-teammate's accusation. Lods didn't care about it but listened attentively since Lululai wanted to talk. It turned out that during their first encounter with a dungeon boss, Lululai, not yet proficient in her magic, got carried away and challenged the boss, resulting in her teammates getting severely injured. Lululai, Unable to decide whom to save with her limited magical power, tried to heal both but failed, leading to their deaths. While Lululai felt responsible, Lods argued that the tank and attacker who couldn't protect the team or defeat the boss were also at fault. Seeing Lululai still blaming herself, Lods asked her what she would do if he called himself a murderer. Would she still stay in the same team? Lululai confidently said yes, believing there must be a reason behind such actions. Lods affirmed he trusted the Lululai he knew over the accusations of others. When they reached the training ground, they saw Jed glowing red and then fainting. His training involved activating 2 skills simultaneously, Iron Wall Guardian and Bloodied Terminator, which put a huge strain on his body. A guild apothecary checked Jed and said he was in the 2nd stage. Continuing could lead to confusion and life-threatening conditions in the 3rd stage. She didn't oppose his training direction, as she had been treating Jed as an experimental subject. She then pulled out a black orb similar to the demon heart they found earlier. Shirley, the apothecary, explained it was actually the demon's core, filled with countless magic circles. The demon Sheba could use only 3 skills, so she speculated that the number of souls consumed might equal the number of divine skills a demon could use. The more people killed, the more divine skills obtained. Shirley mentioned these insights came from a man in black about whom they knew nothing. Finally, on the eve of the Centennial Festival, Alina finished her work. With no special bonuses during the festival this year, she shouldn't need to work overtime. She and Jed fulfilled their wish to escape overtime hell, celebrating at a pub where Alina, overwhelmed with happiness, passed out drunk, mumbling about the festival. Suddenly, she sat up, called out her Uncle Moonlight's name, and mentioned waiting for him to take on quests at her counter. Jed was devastated, realizing he might just be a stand-in for someone else in Alina's heart. The head of the Adventurers Guild returned to his office only to find the familiar informant guild leader waiting for him. The older sister figure had brought him a package containing a book, which the guild president recognized as a secret mission. However, she refused to disclose the source of the book. For now, it seemed that secret missions were not only sealed in relics. The president instructed his assistant to store the book in the underground library. On the day of the Centennial Festival, Alina, after nearly a month of hard work, managed to leave work on time and showed Jed her brightest smile. Jed felt he could die happy now, surprised by Miss Alina's inherently cute nature. His smooth talking made Alina embarrassed, quickly changing the subject to dominating the festival. Meanwhile, Lululai went alone to the guild's dungeon, troubled by a former teammate's accusations. Lods followed her, seeing her distress, and advised her against meeting the ex-teammate. He suggested they should enjoy the festival instead, questioning what good seeing him would do. Lululai understood but couldn't forgive herself, thinking if she had assessed the situation better, or if her special skill had developed earlier, no one might have died. Lods tried to comfort her, reminding her that her current teammates were him and Jed, and their trust was enough. Lululai remembered how kind and patient they were when she first joined the Silver Swords, not wanting to lose them due to her incompetence. Alina was thoroughly enjoying the festival, vowing to try every food available as a way to relieve stress. After finishing the main dishes, she started on the desserts. Jed offered his hand to avoid getting separated, but Alina felt it was fine, even if they did get separated. Jed was taken aback. He had been hoping to hold her hand since the beginning. Alina, always busy with food, hadn't given him the chance, but realizing she had promised to spend the day with him, she took his hand as a thank you gift. Jed was thrilled by her tsundere demeanor, and the scene was very sweet. In stark contrast, the atmosphere was different for Lululai. The red-haired ex-teammate had nothing good to say. After losing teammates, he was determined to become stronger, hoping to develop a special skill one day. When he heard Lululai had joined the Silver Swords and developed her skill, he was devastated and envious, swearing to kill her if he ever gained a divine skill to avenge his former teammates. His mental state was clearly unstable. Lods quickly took Lululai away, but soon after they left, the red-haired man was rescued by some of his associates. Jed and Alina, holding hands, went to watch a clown performing at the festival. Suddenly, the clown's ice magic hit the audience, causing panic as ice pillars fell everywhere. Alina, stunned by the ruined festival she had long awaited, pulled out a hammer in anger and sent the clown flying. The clown, realizing he was facing an executioner, tried to explain himself, but Alina wasn't listening. Her rare opportunity to attend the festival on time had been ruined, and she wasn't about to let him off easily. Elsewhere, Lods and Lululai coincidentally encountered those same three people who had stolen the book from the underground library. They opened it in front of Lods and Lululai, revealing a secret mission located at the Moss Salt Lake in the Eternal Forest. The mission required defeating all the bosses on each floor. The white-haired man did this to ensure the Silver Swords would also take on the secret mission before teleporting away to escape. Alina also received good news. Because the executioner acted promptly, no civilians were injured, and the disrupted festival was set to resume soon. However, just at that moment, Lods and Lululi brought news that their adversaries had likely already headed to the destination. Without delay, they too needed to set off immediately. Jed knew how much Alina wanted to attend the Centennial Festival and told her not to feel obliged to join them, but Alina, not wanting to see more friends die, chose to go with them instead of staying for the festival. They quickly arrived at the boss room, where the three individuals they were after showed up belatedly. Lods instantly used his ice magic to freeze the trio in place. Whitehair seemed unconcerned, confident they wouldn't kill them since sacrificing souls there would resurrect the demon god. Lods was aware of this, so he aimed to completely immobilize them. Unexpectedly, one of the trio had the ability to sacrifice their life to nullify attacks against their allies, and exploded in the process. Whitehair was unfazed, sticking to their original plan to empower the demon god. Jed couldn't understand why they wanted to resurrect the demon god. Whitehair explained that people with powerful abilities wouldn't understand. He was always seen as a burden in his team due to his escape-focused skill, leading him to feel life was unjust. Why should fate depend on the skills one is born with? A mysterious man in black had once told him of a way to destroy this unfair world by resurrecting the demon god. Before he could finish his tale, the newly resurrected demon god impaled him, but he died, hoping it would destroy the world, only to receive a dismissive comment from the demon god about how disgusting it was. Unexpectedly, the resurrected demon god turned out to be twin little girls who shared skills and targeted Jed as a potential sacrifice. As one sister aimed an arrow at him, Alina rushed forward to break the arrow, noting the force was surprisingly light. She then swung her hammer at one sister, but felt no impact. The twins were destroyed by her blows, but immediately reformed from the mud. Jed deduced that unless both were destroyed simultaneously, they could regenerate indefinitely. As the sister targeted Jed, he let Alina focus on the other sister, and they charged together. Jed knew his special skills couldn't withstand a god-tier ability, but after dodging an arrow, he launched multiple defensive skills to protect himself, finally managing to block the sister's sword attack. Taking advantage of her surprise, he struck her neck with his sword, while Alina smashed the other sister's head. Both sisters vanished but soon regenerated. The battle was far from over. They needed to attack both simultaneously to end it. In a twist, the sisters targeted the red-haired man with an arrow, but Lods heroically saved him and fled with him. Seeing their sacrifice escaping, the younger sister let her elder consume the magic core in her neck, merging into a four-armed monster with divine marks on their faces. As they simultaneously shot arrows, Alina's warhammer broke under the impact, and she was hit by an arrow, collapsing in pain. In desperation, Jed dropped his shield and carried her to safety while Lululai attempted to heal her, but the magic was ineffective. Jed asked Lululai to transfer the Blessing of the Undying from himself to Alina, but it still didn't work. The sisters then reverted to their original forms. Revealing their skill could directly cause death. Jed couldn't stand by and watch Alina die. Entrusting her to Lululai, he went out alone to confront them. Picking up his shield and sword, Jed attempted to use his combined skills again, but his body was failing. Helplessly, he watched as the sister approached, aiming her sword at Lululai and Alina. Jed's mind raced, realizing he needed to draw the sister's attention to himself. He shouted, "Failure!" at the sister, successfully capturing her focus. The sisters had half a divine mark on each of their faces, but even combined, their mark wasn't complete. Although they could regenerate, their bodies were fragile, and their intelligence had decreased with their fusion. For demon gods, they seemed rather crudely made. They were not truly unified beings, but rather imperfect prototypes. The sister was indeed unsettled by Jed's words. and he mustered his strength to launch another composite skill. While Jed distracted the enemy, Lululai was desperately trying to find a solution on her side, crying over her perceived uselessness that could lead to her friends' deaths. At that moment, Alina woke up, reassuring her that it was okay since they were at a dead end either way. Alina's composure and gentleness calmed Lululai, who no longer wanted to see anyone die in front of her. Despite the pain, she summoned her warhammer to fight for herself once more. Inspired by Alina, Lululai tried to replicate Jed's tactic of repeatedly activating her skills, which surprisingly had some effect, though it intensified her pain. Determined not to let her incapacity cause more harm, Lululai endured the pain and kept using her skills on Alina, eventually healing her completely. However, Alina did not wake, and Lululai passed out from exhaustion. Up front, Jed was also nearing his limit. As the sister raised her sword again, at the very last moment, Alina rushed in to save him. Seeing Alina unharmed, Jed collapsed in relief. Their proudest skill had failed to kill Alina, causing the sister to snap. She bit her sibling, transforming into a monster again. Alina, harboring both old grudges and new, furious that a mere demon god dared to harm her dear friends and ruined her festival, decided it was time for it to die. She swung her hammer with unstoppable force towards the demon god's neck, smashing the magic core. The troublesome demon god was finally defeated, and Jed and the others were safe. When Lululai woke up, everyone praised her efforts, but she knew that if it had been just her, she would have given up long ago. She had always disliked her skill, but it was this very ability that allowed her to protect those important to her. Now, she had grown to appreciate this power and resolved to continue striving alongside her friends. What made Alina happiest was that the Centennial Festival was held again. Jed came to make up for the half-day of their date that they missed. In high spirits, Alina went along with him and playfully asked him to help her light a lantern. Then, she started talking about a childhood tale involving a moonlit night and a deceased adventurer she once knew. Hearing the name of the adventurer, Jed realized his misunderstanding. At that moment, Alina looked at him intently and told him not to die on her. Soon after, a few adventurers came over to thank Alina. Everyone knew that at her window, even if there was a crowd, they wouldn't have to wait long. Alina was surprised that everyone remembered this detail, which meant they were aware and intentionally chose her window to queue up, purposely making her work overtime. She took this opportunity to give the adventurers a good scolding. Finally, it was time for the soul-calming ceremony. Everyone watched as the lanterns flew up, the scene noisy and lively, not the quiet prayer Alina had imagined. Jed explained that this noise was to ensure that the souls ascending to the sky wouldn't feel lonely, and those left behind wouldn't be forever bound by sadness. Since everyone had safely returned this time, Jed suggested they hold a celebration. Alina couldn't refuse. It was hard to feel lonely with these people constantly making noise around her. Alina recently started working overtime again. She resumed her old hobby, battling monsters in a maze late at night, breaking through walls, and charging straight into the boss's room. She did all this just to make time to attend a training session for new employees. Jed was curious why Alina, a veteran employee, still needed to attend such training. It was because the management noticed excessive overtime in their department and decided to change the work approach. Alina hoped this meant additional staff, but instead, they just ended up with more tasks. The person who proposed the most efficient improvement plan would get a birthday leave. Although the president had promised to increase the number of counterclerks, it seemed it would take some time for the personnel changes to be announced. Alina decided to compete for the birthday leave, but couldn't think of a good improvement plan. Meanwhile, her colleague was reviewing training materials for new employees, featuring the famous Rosetta as the instructor. Rosetta had transformed the unremarkable job of a counterclerk into a highly sought-after career. Despite this, what mattered was her exceptional business skills. It was said that she alone handled all commissions during an incident when 3 new mazes appeared, drawing adventurers to their service center. Admiring such skills, Alina decided to attend the training. Unexpectedly, Jed's team would also be teaching through mock battles. Jed had stopped obsessing over Alina and was now only doing things that would improve her opinion of him in a campaign he called Operation Improve Impression. The 3-day seminar was something he promised not to do anything Alina would dislike. On the day of the training, while the counterclerks were attentively listening, idle adventurers gathered to watch. Alina, with her charming appearance, became a particular focus of attention. Jed, annoyed, kept his complaints to himself in front of Alina, but remembered the faces of those who bothered her. During an outdoor session about a gray fortress, the president appeared and froze time to thank Alina personally. However, Alina was only concerned with when he would increase the number of counter clerks. Sweating profusely, he could only promise to expedite the process. Left speechless by Alina's probing questions, he managed to say good luck with the training before leaving, but then paused to ask her for another favor next time. After time resumed, the instructor took the counter clerks to observe a mock battle of the Silver Sword. Many of Jed's fans among the clerks were excited to watch him fight up close, and the cheers were constant. Only Alina remained indifferent, while Jed's gaze involuntarily followed her, scaring her into thinking he was trying to get close again. Fortunately, Jed quickly looked away, pretending they didn't know each other. Alina remembered his Operation Improve impression, but still felt annoyed. By evening, the clerks reached the training building, rumored to be haunted. Fearless, Alina led the way, only to find the interior still resembled the old maze, likely due to a lack of budget in the past. Alina and her colleague shared a room, and just after closing the door, they heard frightening knocking sounds. Opening the door revealed Lulu Lai, who was staying in the same building, because the Silver Sword was also housed there. Terrified, she came to sleep with Alina, and shared rumors about the building. When it was still the Grey Fortress maze, there were tales that it connected to the afterlife. An adventure team once entered, but some members vanished without a trace of monster attacks. The remaining members speculated they might have been taken to the afterlife. The training building, part of the old Grey Fortress, supposedly still had sightings of mysterious figures in dark robes, likely the spirits of those taken by death. Alina listened to the entire story unimpressed. After all, she was used to working alone late into the night. Being afraid of such stories would mean she couldn't finish her work. Her colleague, moved by the story, resolved to help Alina get her birthday leave so Jed could help her celebrate. Unfortunately, Alina had no desire for Jed to be part of her birthday leave and preferred to enjoy a pleasant holiday alone. However, her colleague recalled that Jed hadn't greeted Alina today and thought they might have had a quarrel. Lululai explained that Jed was executing his impression improvement strategy, allowing Alina some peace. Her colleague teasingly suggested that Alina might be lonely, which she firmly denied. Lululai then asked another female colleague if she had someone she liked, who promptly showed a figurine of an executioner. The two others, knowing the real identity of the executioner, silently watched her swoon over it. Meanwhile, Lods brought Jed some intelligence, but unfortunately, there were no clues about the man in black. All that was known was that his goal was to resurrect a demon lord, and he seemed well informed about the guild's internal movements. Could there be a traitor among the adventurers? How did that white-haired individual access the underground library? Only a few had the clearance to enter there. The next day, the counter-clerks began attending a lecture given by Rosetta. Alina listened intently, determined to learn how to avoid overtime. During the Q&A session, she eagerly raised her hand to ask how to solve the overtime issue for counter-clerks. Rosetta immediately recognized that Alina was not a newcomer. Alina admitted she had been working for 3 years, prompting Rosetta to decide to share her unique method to overcome overtime, which was to work over 100 hours of overtime each month, including holidays. Wait, is this even humanly possible? Everyone knows overtime is dreadful. Rosetta suggested imagining the happy faces of customers to fall in love with working overtime, claiming this mindset would liberate one from the concept of labor, thus eliminating overtime. Alina was shattered by the response, realizing her idol was just a workaholic. After class, Alina became robotic. Hearing this, Jed hurried to comfort her, reminding her that she wouldn't have to work overtime during the training. Seeing Jed gave her a slight sense of relief, unaware that tougher challenges were yet to come. During class, Alina accidentally made eye contact with Jed outside the window. He simply smiled and greeted her before leaving, but his distant attitude left her feeling gloomy. Jed was troubled these past 2 days. He and Lods suspected the president might be involved in some dubious activities, although it was the president who had strongly supported them becoming the new Silver Sword. Jed didn't want to suspect him, wishing to trust as he had been trusted initially. Unexpectedly, Jed encountered the president in the courtyard, looking at a statue of a previous generation's Silver Sword, who had successfully conquered the Grey Fortress. but whose companions, including his daughter, a healer, had all perished. Today was the anniversary of the president's daughter's death. Faced with this, Jed found it impossible to confront him. The president praised Jed as a true warrior, capable of intervening in battles with his superior skills, and suggested that Jed might one day become the guild president. After the president left, his assistant approached Jed, who inquired if there had been any unusual behavior from the president. The assistant sensed Jed's suspicion, but assured him that the president was not foolish enough to wish for a world crisis. However, the assistant admitted the president was a deeply human person, not as approachable in the past and quite selfish. The change was due to his foster daughter, and without her, even the assistant couldn't predict what he might do. Meanwhile, Alina was teaching a younger colleague how to handle overtime fatigue by alternately closing one eye to rest it, then the other. Her colleague, moved by the advice, went to buy food, leaving Alina alone. That's when an adventurer, who had been eyeing Alina, approached to chat her up, excessively flattering her and expressing a desire to grow closer. Previously, Alina had found Jed annoying, but this comparison made Jed seem normal. She tried to leave, but the man grabbed her hand. Before Alina could react, Jed heroically intervened and scared the adventurer away. He didn't linger, intending to leave, but Alina, blushing, thanked him. Jed appeared indifferent, frustrating Alina, who told him that his Operation Improve impression was backfiring and that he should just interact with her as he used to, without the unnecessary coldness. Jed was stunned when he heard Alina. He had unwittingly made her unhappy, but thankfully, Alina was direct in telling him. Just as a romantic atmosphere was beginning to develop between them, a colleague burst in with a pile of food. Seeing Jed there, the colleague asked if he had heard rumors about the training building being haunted by a grim reaper. Both Jed and Alina thought it was just a rumor. A young girl speculated about what would happen if the ghost really appeared, suggesting it might be lurking in the shadows in a dark robe. Hearing this, Jed became alert and decided to stay at the training ground that night, offering to help if anything unusual happened. Meanwhile, adventurers nearby discussed a new, massive maze that had emerged, causing overcrowding at every service center. This meant that once Alina and her colleagues finished their training, they would face another bout of overtime. Alina consoled herself with the thought that at least she didn't have to work for a few days. But then documents arrived requiring them to work overtime at night after classes. Alina felt a resentment more terrifying than any ghost. At the training ground, Jed was practicing multiple skills. Lods and Lululai urged him not to overexert himself, as it would be no help in an emergency if he was exhausted. Jed heeded their advice and rested, discussing the entity in the black robe with his teammates. It was highly possible that the Grim Reaper haunting the area was the man in black. Jed and Lod suspected the president might be this man in black, but Lululai was reluctant to believe it. If it were true, how could he neglect Alina, who had defeated a demon lord? Capturing the man in black would unveil the truth. Unbeknownst to them, it was already late at night. Shirley was in his lab, studying a black orb filled with divine skill magic circles, the only remnant left by a vanquished demon lord, possibly the creature's essence. He wondered why ancestors had fashioned such relics into human forms, as creating humans was cumbersome. Suddenly, Shirley had a realization that repurposing existing humans as relics was the most efficient method. Could this be the truth? However, in the next moment, a man in a black robe appeared behind him. Shirley grabbed the orb and shouted for help, but was knocked unconscious by a strike from the man, who then took the orb without harming Shirley further. Simultaneously, Alina, exhausted, fell asleep. The room's lights began flickering, and the curtains rustled in the wind, which terrified her colleague. Despite attempts to wake her, Alina didn't stir. Then, someone turned the doorknob, and the door opened to reveal no one there. Suddenly, the adventurer who had harassed Alina appeared beside her in ghostly form. She grabbed some salt from the table and started throwing it around. Fortunately, Alina woke up, saw the adventurer from earlier, and, infuriated that even a ghost would disturb her work, punched him, dispersing the mist around him. Confused but decisive, her colleague suggested they go to Jed. They ran to the training ground and explained that a ghost had really appeared in their room. Lods, experienced in such matters, suggested it might be a spectral monster because the white shadow was a typical phenomenon of such creatures. The adventurer might have been possessed by a ghost due to a particular trigger. Nonetheless, Jed and the others headed towards the training building. At that moment, a young girl noticed a dark figure darting past. Jed quickly used his skills and confirmed someone was there. They left the girl behind and chased after the figure in the black robe, eventually catching up in the training building, where the figure was waiting for them. As soon as they arrived, they activated a magic circle, and all four fell through it. Alina and a few others fell to the lower level, and she ended up on top of Jed. Although Jed found the situation not too bad, the priority was to quickly find an exit. The entrance above was sealed, and no one knew about a basement in this building. Could it be a secret floor of the Grey Citadel? If so, the rumors about adventurers disappearing might just be due to them accidentally falling into a trap here, where the monsters of this hidden floor are of a high level, making it hard for adventurers to survive alone. On hearing this, Alina was overwhelmed. They had just discovered a massive 7-story labyrinth and were set for weeks of overtime. Now, an old, forgotten dungeon had emerged, threatening endless overtime. While Alina cried out loud, Lululai and the others quickly changed the subject. If it wasn't death who caused their fall, then who was it? Just then, the man in black they had seen earlier appeared. Before his arrival, Jed hadn't sensed his presence at all, as if he had stopped time or teleported. To everyone's surprise, the man in black revealed his face. It was actually the guild leader. Who would have thought? They wondered. Our boss who makes us work overtime is the big boss. Alina was shocked, but Jed, who had had his suspicions about the guild leader, was not as surprised. He just didn't understand why the leader had made such choices. Despite his suspicions, his soft heart had prevented him from acting because he believed in their guild, the Silver Sword. Could all of his actions have been just to use them as pawns? The leader didn't answer but teleported behind them, saying he wanted to show them something and urged them to follow. Lululai was still in denial. Alina asked Jed when he started suspecting. Jed pointed out a few clues, including a white-haired man who had not only entered the underground prison, but also the secret mission archives. Impossible without an insider's help. But now, they had no choice but to follow. The leader indeed had been acting for his deceased foster daughter. Initially, when his master left a little girl in his care, the leader was a heartless adventurer who could easily abandon his companions. However, his master insisted that caring for the girl was part of his training. The girl, grabbing his hand, told him she was hungry. Pulled from his memories, the leader waited for Jed and the others in what used to be the boss's room, where his former teammate from the previous generation of the Silver Sword had died. They had almost defeated the boss when, in an instant, everyone was turned to charcoal. The leader survived by sheer luck. Later, he learned of a way to resurrect people and turned the Grey Citadel into the guild headquarters, hiding the existence of the underground floors to preserve the site as it was. This was to reverse time and revisit the distant past. However, with his power, he could only watch as events unfolded. Thus, he needed the demon core. His reason for becoming the guild leader was to locate the demon hidden in secret missions. Despite 10 years of searching, he hadn't found a mission nor an adventurer strong enough to battle a demon until he discovered Alina, who was as strong as a demon. He might even be stronger than a demon. That's when he was sure that this little girl could match a demon in power. Thus, Alina's battles against demons were all orchestrated by the guild leader. He knew Alina wouldn't just watch Jed and the others die, so he kept sending the Silver Sword on missions. Frustrated, Jed punched him, but the leader didn't retaliate and let Jed vent his anger. Eventually, it was Alina who stopped him, as she was the one who should be furious. Now, Alina just wanted the leader to stop causing trouble. But this was the leader's reason for living. A senior had told him how to resurrect people, and he had lived to start everything over. Now, that senior finally allowed him to use the demon core. To revive his foster daughter, the leader had to exploit them. Jed and Alina learned from him that the true value of the demon core was to embed it within oneself and transform into a demon. The demons they had fought before were actually former humans who had abandoned their humanity. The leader showed the demon core in his hand, ready to exchange his soul for demonic power to bring back his daughter and tell her everything he never had the chance to. The leader had been strict with his foster daughter, hoping she would quickly become an independent adventurer and move out. But she knew he didn't mean it, and even said she would join the Silver Sword and take care of him in the future so he wouldn't be lonely. She never hid her gratitude towards her foster father, knowing that adventurers could die at any time, so she always expressed her feelings while she could. Unfortunately, the leader didn't understand this and saw raising her as just a part of his training. He thought she would hate him and leave, but she, having faced much worse people, loved her foster father who, despite claiming it was just training, chose to stay with her. Eventually, the leader came to see her as his real daughter. Now, he asked Alina for a favor. Soon, he would activate the demon core with his soul, which would be consumed, turning him into a regular demon. He hoped Alina would decisively kill him then. After saying this, he launched a divine skill. As the magic circle appeared, his body mutated, and he let out a painful roar before smashing the ground with his fist. When Alina came to her senses, she found herself witnessing events from over a decade ago. The leader was holding his dying daughter, crying bitterly as her body disintegrated in his arms. Then, a man in black showed up and told him of a way to end his grief. The next second, Alina was back in the present. The leader had failed. The furthest he could go back was the moment he was crying with his daughter in his arms. Why couldn't he go back to when she was still alive? While Jed and the others were still stunned, Alina rushed forward with a hammer, but the leader's figure vanished instantly, and she struck the air. She tried to reason with him, saying that even if he could change the past and revive his daughter, she wouldn't be happy to see her father die for it. The leader simply said that parents are willing to die for their children, so sacrificing his humanity was a small price if it meant his daughter could live happily. However, what he brought back from that time was just a charred corpse. The leader couldn't resurrect his daughter, and was overwhelmed with grief, regretting making her an adventurer and letting her join the Silver Sword. All he wanted now was to see his daughter again, but didn't know how. Overwhelmed by grief, the leader was soon controlled by the demon core. When he reappeared, the mark of a god was on his face. This leader was no longer the same. He only wanted to consume those before him to gain more power. After becoming a demon, the guild leader's abilities became even more extraordinary. Alina knocked him away, but he instantly teleported in front of Lululai. Lods rushed up to shield Lululai, taking the hit, but Lululai was still sent flying by a punch. Despite his control, the leader felt he couldn't manipulate his body at will. Fortunately, Lods and Lululai were only knocked unconscious, and although the leader had the power to kill with one strike, he spared them. Jed speculated that the leader's consciousness was still inside his body, suggesting that destroying the demon core might restore his consciousness. Jed knew the leader well, and predicted he would start by attacking the weakest. Jed would likely be next. He told Alina to wait for the right moment to strike and then charged at the leader. However, the leader's movements were unpredictable, and Jed was quickly defeated. Alina too struggled against the leader, and they had to alternate their attacks. Jed first activated his 100 Eyes Beast skill but still couldn't avoid the leader's punch, and was knocked away. The leader, holding Jed, explained that he initially spared the two to make the others lower their guard and expose their weaknesses. This demon was a more cunning version of the leader, sly yet not arrogant, never underestimating his opponent, and as cold as a machine. Jed had been warned about this, so he activated the 100 Eyes Beast skill again, while Lululai cast a buff on him. Jed launched a combined skill with others, and Lods cast a spell to buy time for Jed and Lululi. Jed managed to put some distance between himself and the leader, who teleported behind him again. But this time, Jed dodged it. Jed had activated double 100 Eyes Beast, allowing him to see minute details of the leader's movements, although the immense amount of information overloaded his brain, necessitating Lululi's undying blessing to keep him stable. Lods continued to launch long-range attacks, fogging the leader's vision. Alina, ready with her hammer, suddenly appeared and struck the leader hard, sending him flying, followed by another hammer blow. Just when it seemed critical, the leader stopped time, freezing everyone but himself. As he prepared to counterattack Alina, she, by her own strength, broke the barrier and moved freely in the frozen time, engaging in a fierce fight with the leader and disarming his giant sword. The leader, incredulous, wondered if Alina's skills surpassed even divine skills. Alina didn't care about these details. She demanded the leader revert back or she would destroy his body along with the demon core. Realizing he was no match for Alina, the leader tried to tempt her by offering to resurrect someone she cared about. Having seen her past, and presuming her loneliness, Alina sternly taught him a lesson, knowing that the dead cannot be resurrected, and that she isn't lonely. Her efforts were to avoid reliving such pain, unlike the foolish leader who was obsessed with reviving his daughter, forgetting the memories they shared. Memories can empower the living, but he had forgotten everything he learned from his daughter, now even planning to sacrifice his life for her resurrection. What about those memories? After this, Alina reminded him not to forget their agreement to eliminate overtime. She then chopped off the leader's arm with her hammer, turning it back into the demon core. The leader regained his senses and remembered the days he spent with his daughter. Why had he forgotten her smile? With that, the matter came to an end. Alina returned to her overtime life, while her colleague Layla was almost falling asleep next to her, excusing it as letting her eyes rest in turns. Then, Jed came over and told Alina that the guild leader had awakened. They all went to visit him together, although everyone was injured in the last battle. Fortunately, Lululi's healing magic had helped them gradually recover. The leader, having narrowly escaped death, couldn't understand why Alina hadn't finished him off, given his misdeeds. After waking up, the divine skills inside the leader had vanished, and he was now just a regular adventurer. He had harmed many adventurers in his quest to become a demon, and felt death was the only way to atone. However, Alina reminded him not to forget his promise to eliminate overtime, as that was what had been motivating her all along. The leader, feeling utterly defeated, was thoroughly lectured by Alina. Work wouldn't disappear on its own, so he had to face it properly. Alina, in a threatening tone, asked if he knew what to do for the next personnel change. The leader could only agree, grudgingly. Of course, Jed and the others were not ready to forgive him so easily, and their demand was that Alina should no longer have to do overtime. The leader could only promise to do his best. They then inquired about the senior the leader had mentioned earlier, but he was worried about dragging Jed and the others into a more dangerous calamity. He intended to reveal the name, but unexpectedly suffered a severe headache before he could speak, and Lululi's healing spell did not help. Eventually, the leader clutched his heart and admitted he couldn't remember who the senior was, suggesting his memory had been sealed. Even Lululi's transcendent skills were repelled, indicating that the adversary certainly possessed divine skills. It was very likely that the leader had been used by that person. At this point, Alina came over and urged them to stop chatting. There was a pile of work waiting. She asked Layla to bring the files, showing no courtesy to the three of them. She also drank a potion to recover, realizing there was no hope of leaving on time. Not even a birthday leave was available. Her business improvement proposal was not adopted. Instead, the chosen plan was clearly designed to cater to the manager's preferences. People with a lot of work had to request assistance promptly, and those who were free needed to actively help. But this plan was impractical. Once it got busy, no one would be free. And even if they were, it was unlikely they would help with overtime for no reason. All favors would have to be returned. Layla had finished her work and quickly pulled out a small figurine of the executioner to heal herself. She was the only one present who didn't know the real identity of the executioner. After healing, Layla wanted to help Alina, but Alina told her to go home and rest since they had to continue working the next day. So, Layla promptly left. During a break, Jed gave Alina a new crystal chip, but this one was slightly damaged. It wouldn't glow, a feature that normally indicated a companion was close to death. Its perpetual darkness seemed like a wish for no one to die. Jed presented it as an apology for Alina's unhappy times during her training period, and promised her that he wouldn't die, nor would he let Lods and Lululi make any sacrifices. One day, he would become strong enough so Alina wouldn't have to fight demons anymore. Eventually, Alina accepted the crystal chip and hung it around her neck, smiling at Jed. Jed, thrilled by her acceptance, felt even more energized to work overtime. Alina, staying true to her goals to break free from the hell of overtime, led Jed and the others back to the labyrinth to battle bosses,